Welcome to the podcast that buffs your Hearthstone game. This is Velen's Chosen.
Not all who wander are lost.
Greetings, visionaries, and welcome to Velen's Chosen. Whether you're a competitive player, an arena specialist, a deck building visionary, or just liking having a bit of fun, we can help you buff your game and achieve your Hearthstone goals. I am Grant Gould, and joining me from across the North American continent is your friend and mine, Eve Martin. How you doing tonight, Eve?
Well, if I'm be honest with you, I had a bit of a rough day this morning.
Uh-huh.
My grandmother passed away this morning at 7 o'clock a.m.
Oh, no, I'm sorry to hear that.
And I was thinking, planning, figuring out how to get to the United States, because that's where she's from, for the funeral, and realized I don't have a passport. So there was a bunch of running around today, getting that set into motion. They haven't set the date for the funeral yet, but I was figuring, average is about a week. So trying to get it expedited and everything fixed and worked out. So I think I'm going to make it because, things have changed over the years between our two fine countries. And for me to get from here to over there, they need me to prove that I'm a Canadian citizen. It's not good enough to just kind of have an ID and get across the border anymore.
What part of the country is your grandmother from?
Washington is where Seattle, Washington.
So not too far, but still is that border thing.
Yes. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Were you close with her?
We used to be, but the thing is that she's 96.
Oof.
So I feel like it's okay because she's lived a really long and full life and had a lot of family and friends, go down to see her and spend time with her before the end. And so I'm kind of at peace with it. It's not a huge shock.
Right.
It's not sudden. So yeah, I'm okay. I was more worried about my mom because it's my mom's mom.
Sure.
But she was able to go down and be there with her too before she passed. So everything's okay. I mean, it's still sad and everything, and we're all going to gather together as a family. But that's kind of the thing about weddings and funerals. You get to see a whole bunch of relatives that you haven't seen maybe in 10, 15 years, and we all kind of gather together to celebrate the life of someone who we all loved and who touched all of our lives. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, to being able to see everybody, even though it's going to be a sad occasion.
Yeah. I remember when my grandfather died that there was people that came out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Family members that I never met before and have never seen since. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I even had a weird experience where I met a cousin of mine that was like my doppelganger.
Looked like you, or just was interested in all the things?
No, he looked like me. He looked just like me. And I was just like, this is weird. And
genes.
we didn't talk to each other much, but I saw it. I'm like, oh, he looks just like me.
People say everyone has one. Everyone's
Yeah,
got one.
I guess you could say mine's in the family somewhere, but anyways, I wasn't trying to make light of your
No, but I'm coming to your side of the border. If I recorded while I was down there, you wouldn't be saying across the North American continent or whatever. I'd be down where you are.
I'd say the U.S. of A. Up in Coffee Town.
Yeah, is that Seattle, Coffee Town?
I mean, Seattle is well reputed for having a lot of coffee and coffee houses and stuff like that. Okay. I don't know that they make coffee up there. They don't grow it. 'Cause I think
just
you need a
elbow to
different
elbow
climate
with
for that.
Starbucks.
Well, it's kind of where Starbucks hails from. So,
Oh,
um,
well,
but
there you
it's
go.
known for having coffee houses, and it's known for being the land of hipsters. So some people would fit in there. I don't know that I would because I'm really not a hipster at all. But
I'm a gamer, so I'm not exactly sure what I have in common with my relatives, but we'll work it out. It'll be fine.
yeah. So, you want to get into the news?
There's new card reveals. Are we going to talk about that in the news?
Yeah. There's the new shaman card. I'm trying to remember what it's called here.
Earthquake?
I didn't write it. Earthquake. Yes. Earthquake. It does 5 damage to all minions, and then it does 2 more damage to all minions.
And I immediately thought this is tech directly against my druid deck, right? Because you have like Soul of the Forest.
It's the Soul of the Forest and Soul or Spirit or Soul of the Murloc. It's like kill your minions and then cure all the spawn of those, or kill all the spawn of those minions.
Like defile. Like there's no way it's not going to work like that. It's going to wait for the death rattle and then it's going to clear the board again. And like whatever you've managed to buff your first round of minions up to, 5 damage is probably going to take care of that, I imagine. And then so there seemed to be a little confusion as to whether this is one of the plague cards, and I assumed, like based on what's happened in the past, that all the plague cards would have plague in the name. Plague of frogs, plague of, whatever. Like that's kind of what you would think it would be. But it is a do damage to all minions and do damage to all minions again, which is sort of in theme with the plague idea that they said.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and there's, who knows? I just think it was funny. I was looking, I was like 5 damage and then deal 2 damage. And I thought, if this isn't a tech card, I don't know what is.
Yep. Yep.
So, the Mage Quest has been revealed. It's a 1 cost. Obviously, it's a quest. It's called Raid the Sky Temple. And it's got Reno Jackson running with a bunch of scrolls in his huge arms. And it reads, quest, cast 10 spells, reward, Ascendant Scroll.
And Ascendant Scroll hero power says, add a random mage spell to your hand. It costs 2 less. I love the picture of Reno Jackson, though. Just like running with all the scrolls. It's so him.
Yeah. How many scrolls does he need? And why is he grabbing that many of them? He looks like he's running for his life.
I feel like he doesn't read much, so he's probably just going to try and sell them. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. He seems like the ask questions later kind of guy. Like just act and then we'll deal with the fallout. Or what's the phrase? The phrase is better to ask forgiveness than permission.
Yes.
One of those kind of people.
This one. Bees! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. The druid spell for 3 mana. Choose a minion. Summon 4 1/1 bees that attack it. Okay.
So how do I get my bees to not die? And then I can have, that is the question I'm wondering about.
Well, it says choose
Are they beasts?
A minion. So you can choose your own minion if you want. So if you have a minion, say, that gets stronger the more damage it takes. There's a couple of them out there that if they survive damage, things happen. Maybe. But yeah, what is it just for flavor? Because it is super flavorful. Like, that is very awesome.
Yeah, I think it's just more interesting than, and it might be one of those things. It's going to have individual ticks on it.
Yes. So
maybe it's one of those things.
It could get rid of Divine Shield. Because 1 bee would attack first. It would pop the Divine Shield. And then the second bee would attack. And then if it had a death rattle, I don't know about that, though. Because
I thought they were looking to not have removal for... I thought they were looking to not have removal for Druid.
Single target removal. This is 4 damage, which is the same damage as Swipe.
Yeah,
so
for 1 less.
I really don't think. And also, it's not technically going to be affected by spell damage. Like if you had Malygos out, it wouldn't do any more than 4 bees.
This is true because it's minions.
Yes.
Interesting. And I wonder if there's a mechanic where there's, if X amount of beasts have died in a turn, because insect type things have been considered beasts, right?
Yes, bees definitely. I think. Well,
I mean, like
scarabs are.
Scarabs are considered beasts, and they're
spiders are
not really
beasts as well.
So I would assume bees would be beasts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just agree that that's what it is.
So to be like resurrect all beasts that died this turn or died this game or something like that, and then the bees would all come back.
Yeah, could be.
If they're summoned, then they would have rush. Like if you actually get 4 1/1 bees that go on the board as minions and then attack.
Yeah.
If they aren't just like an animation, that's the question. Would they actually be tokens that die? Or would they just be an animation like arcane missiles?
I'm not sure. It's kind of it's an interesting notion. I hope it's actual like little bee like.
Well, it says summon 4 1/1 bees, so that's right there. Minions, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's going to be actual little circles that show up and do
exactly.
The thing.
There's going to be 4 little tokens that attack and then die. So yeah, there's going to be something else that goes up with this. The flavor text is right before C's. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And
did it take
looks
a
like
second to register?
Yes.
Also weaponized wasp. 3 mana, 3/3 shaman beast. Battle cry: if you control a lackey, deal 3 damage. Which is pretty decent because they got a couple of things that create lackeys, including a murloc.
Yeah, I could see this card being pretty good because lackeys kind of prove themselves to be quite strong.
Yeah,
you know what
definitely.
I mean?
Like they're worth putting in your deck, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was imp balming.
Imp balming. That card didn't seem very good to me, but let's read what it is first.
Destroy a minion, shuffle 3 worthless imps into your deck. So, I mean, it's destroy a minion for 4.
Yeah.
Which is really cheap. So, the other part is the downside. Like, that's your the demons always do really powerful things, and then there's your downside, which is usually doing damage straight to your hero face. And in this case, it's weakening your deck because when you want to pull something, you're going to pull an imp instead and just be like, damn.
Yeah, even Sense Demons doesn't quite... It's not quite the antidote to that, you know what I mean? Or antidote is what I'm trying to say. Because you don't want to be pulling a 1/1 imp on turn 5.
Yeah.
On a deck that's trying to control the board.
I mean, they were talking about the quest, which is to draw a whole bunch of cards, and this will make your deck fluffier.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fluffier.
Unless you can pull them right back out again and put them right on the board, which who knows, we might get a spell or a card that does that.
Yeah.
Or is like bigger depending on how many imps there are in your deck.
Right. Yeah, if you have 50 imps in your deck, win the game. I don't know.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. Make your deck stupidly bad and then also win.
Sounds like a plan to me. WinCon City.
So I think that's all the reveal cards we've had since last we recorded.
Yeah, which is honestly not that many, but it'll get exponentially high. We're on the low part of the parabola here. So let's see. Fire Festival is live. Fire Fest Evil, I should say. I love this Tavern Brawl. I don't normally love Tavern Brawl, but it's not even a Tavern Brawl. It's a dungeon crawl. The lore is Rafam and Boom and the gang have stolen Dalaran and they've crashed it into Black Rock Mountain. of all the things to crash it into, Black Rock Mountain, okay? And they got to get it out. They got to get it unstuck. In order to do that, you have to pick one of the 5 villains: Togwaggle, Hagatha, Rafam, Boom, and who am I forgetting? It is, what is it?
The
5th
priest?
one. The priest. Madame Lazul.
Madame Lazul.
And you pick one of them, and then you just fight basically the old Black Rock, one of the wings in Black Rock Mountain, the old adventure.
Yeah.
So and if you win it, if you complete it in an hour or less, you get a golden card. Which one is it? It's I don't remember offhand. It's one of the golden cards. And if you do it in 40 minutes, you get a different golden card. And for completing it, you get the Ragnaros card back, which was the month that Black Rock Mountain, the adventure was released, was the card back that everybody got. And some people were like, I didn't get the card back, which I thought was kind of funny. And they're like, oh, wait, I already have that one. Because people don't use it because it's old and wasn't that great, in my opinion. But I might just be overstepping my bounds and stating my opinions so strongly. But yeah, so I completed it in 22 minutes, and I thought I was doing good until shout out to Shockmaster. He completed it in 16 minutes.
Ooh. But is it the first run? Is it his very first run, or did he do it a couple of times and try and get like a low?
Well, it wasn't my first run, and it wasn't his first run, I'm guessing. Maybe it was. He might just be that good.
I didn't realize that you were supposed to try and speed run it, but my first run, 32 minutes.
That's pretty good. I mean, under 40 is what I think they were shooting for. I think most people were getting in the 30s if they just kind of played it without thinking about the speed.
Yeah.
But
Golden Bronze Herald and Golden Reoccurring Villain.
Reoccurring Villain if you beat it in under 40?
Yeah.
Bronze Herald if you beat it under an hour.
Yeah.
Right. So get those rewards, get those that free dust, because that's what I use it for. Some people like the shinies, but I don't care. Very cool. Every day, make sure that you log in to claim your Fire Festival quests. Sometimes it's going to be packs, and sometimes it's going to be gold. It's different for each person. It's not consistent, so check it out. If you have a full quest log, the Fire Festival quest will automatically sub in, so just got to watch out for that.
Yeah, it'll just take one of yours and turn it into a Fire Festival one, which is fine. I'd rather they did that than not give you it at all.
Sure. But it does, if you're trying to min-max, that's not the way to go. So
yeah, 'tis true.
But I got to say, like, so far, I mean, I love it. I've liked Fire Festival every time they've had it, but this time incorporating it with the expansion and making like a part of the continuing storyline for the last month of this particular set is a master stroke. It really is.
It's keeping the storyline in everybody's head going forward, like theming it into the tavern brawl and everything like that. It's just really smart. And the story is just going to be in everybody's mind when we get into the next expansion as well.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, right? I mean,
yeah, the
city of Dalaran crashing into Black Rock Mountain, just the concept to me is just absurd. So, and Rafan, the trailer for it, Rafan, I'm kind of just like, what's going on here? You know, his utter disbelief. What have I gotten myself into? This was supposed to work, and here we are, stuck. Magical city stuck in the side of a mountain.
I think out of all of them, he's supposed to be kind of the most together, like the one who's got his act together the most out of the ragtag bunch.
Yeah, he's the straight man, so to speak.
Yeah,
he's not the comic relief at all.
But how good can he be if he chose them as his co-conspirators? I mean,
yeah, I mean, so it's one of those things like. You're such a genius that you allied yourself with these guys? Okay.
Well, they make him look good.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. He has to hire people that are just kind of subservient to him. I mean, isn't that all like egomaniacs? Like an egomaniac would never hire somebody that's as good or better. They would always hire somebody that's obviously inferior.
Right.
So
did you mention that you get a Saviors of Oldham card pack?
Yes, I did not mention that.
So the first time you defeat the 4 bosses, you're going to get a Saviors of Oldham card pack. It just bothers me every time I log in. I see that little number 1 there by the card packs, and then you go and you can't open it. yet.
Yeah, I've had that. I've already had that issue. I'm like, hey, card back. No, not yet.
Yeah. But next week you're going to get another one. And then the week after that, you're going to get another one. So all of the Tavern Brawls are going to award you another pack. You get 3 by the time we're done the whole festival, fire festival.
I mean, I won't lie. That's awesome of them just to give us free packs and stuff.
And there's a
I
bunch
don't
of
have to do
golden
that,
cards.
so.
Like next week, you're going to get a golden Reforms Scheme card. And then the week after that, Saviors of Oldham. I don't know what the other reward is. Maybe it's just another card back or a pack.
Card packs. I think they're giving out some. Oh boy, I'm so blanking out. Card packs from the last expansion,
Yes.
Rise of Shadows. I was going to say Shadows of Reform, and I'm like, that's not what it's called.
For the first 2 weeks, you're going to work together to progress. Oh yeah, the community. Fireside Gathering Tavern Brawls. They're all of the Fireside Gatherings are going to be trying to defeat like a really huge Ragnaros.
Like a 50,000 health Ragnaros. Yeah. Yeah, that seems pretty dope.
Yeah. And then you're going to get at 25% of his health, card reveal 1, 50%, card reveal 2, 75%, card reveal 3, and 100% legendary card reveal.
Do you think the community will do it? Do you think they're up for the challenge?
July 10th to 31st, so it's happening already.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they've already done it. Do you think that's why we got the Reno Jackson quest reveal?
Right, because that's a legendary. So they probably already did it. We've done it.
Possible.
Everybody, good job. 1, 2, 3, and then the legendary.
Yeah.
What am I saying? It's already been done.
Could be. Could be. I don't know.
Bees,
All right, let's
weaponized
see.
wasp, and then what's the... Maybe the Ascendant Scroll counts as one.
Maybe. Who knows? The Ascendant Scroll.
Get to see what the hero power looks like.
Honestly, I can't say I'm very excited about that legendary. I hope I don't get it.
No?
Nah, it doesn't sound very exciting. I've been thinking a lot about like game mechanics and things that are... I like random things, but I also don't like random things.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Here's the thing, though. It's on par with the rest of the quests that we've been seeing. They want them to be fun, but they don't want them to be like insta-pick and then super powerful once you've finished the quest. That seems to kind of be the theme going on here. And so this fits in with that. It looks fun. It looks like something you could do. But then once you've finished, it's not like now you just win.
Yeah.
And I think that's a better place for quests to be rather than, what was it called? Crystal Caverns?
Yeah, where you get that and that's pretty much GG.
Yeah. It's like just you're going to steamroll your opponent. They don't have any chance afterwards. So yeah. This is better so far. We'll see.
We'll see. There's got to be one quest that's just awesome, right? There has to be one but it should be hard to achieve, right? So that's the balance. I want the quests to be good. Like I genuinely want them to be like, yeah, man, I had to work to get it. I had to really like play my deck perfectly to get it, but now I can win because I have it. You know what I mean? I think that's what Crystal Caverns were supposed to be. It's supposed to be difficult to pull off.
And
it's just that the Hearthstone community was too smart for the devs. I think the community was just, think about it. Like the person who pulled it off first of note was Dog. Dog's a genius.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He pulled it off and everybody just followed suit. And every time they nerfed it, they just figured out how to pull it off again.
Well, we have so many more minds working on every problem. Like every card that they give us, there's millions of minds working on how to get the most out of it versus, the dev team who, as clever as they are, they cannot see all ends.
No, they can't. No. Even if they were to have 1,000 people working on the game, it still wouldn't cover the ground that 1 million people can. Just the law of averages or whatever that is. I don't know if that's what the actual law is, but...
restart your video for me because you've been frozen for a while. I've been waiting for it to kind of refresh, but it's not.
Sure.
And I'm hoping that if you turn it off and on again, that it might. There we go.
Is that better?
Yeah. Start
Word.
moving
It
again.
hasn't been off on Twitch, by the way. Just saying.
Oh, then it's just
So.
frozen on my end.
Yeah, Discord stinks sometimes.
Discord.
But we love it anyways.
Yes, much better than Skype. You remember the days of Skype? Let's never go back.
Don't remind me. Let's never go back. Sorry, those of you who love Skype out there.
Are there
I don't
those
know
of
why you do. I don't know that they exist. I think grandmas like Skype. I think parents who don't know about Discord like Skype.
Let me preach to you about
Like-
Discord. You who still use Skype, come over to the dark side. We have cookies.
So the school district I used to work for blocked Discord. I couldn't even update the app on my work computer. But gosh golly darn gee whiz, I could use Facebook.
Oh my gosh, that's so much worse though.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're blocking Discord,
Priorities.
but not Facebook or Twitter or any of the other major social media giants that more people are going to use. But you're going to block this.
Did they
This
give you
must
an
be
explanation?
No, they just did. Well, it's gamer stuff and kids.
Well, that's
Kids
what
do
I
that.
assumed, right? It's a gamer thing, so obviously
It's a gamer thing.
bad.
You second class citizen, you being a gamer.
Ay, ay, ay. All right.
Oh well, I didn't want to push it too much because I don't like people knowing what I'm up to all the time. So, why do you want this Discord so bad on your computer? And I'm like, oh, didn't want to raise any weird suspicion that would be unfounded, but you know how that stuff goes. All right, should we get into the beef of what we're going to talk about today? Are you ready for it?
Sure. I just noticed that there was a Hearthstone Saviors of Oldham developer AMA.
Yeah, I missed that. I didn't see that this week because I spent all my time working on the heist stuff.
So they kind of gave an explanation of why they chose Elise, Bran, Sir Finley, and Reno for each of their roles.
Mhm.
Elise, naturally a druid because of her studies in the Ungoro crater. Bronn, his huge
Fair.
gun. They were like, yeah, he's a hunter. Sir Finley apparently was knighted, and so now he's a paladin. And Reno...
Oh, if he's a sir, yeah.
Well, the only class left was mage, so that made them create the Gatling wand.
The Gatling wand. Oh my gosh.
To kind of justify him being a mage.
Because he's the non-magiest looking character ever. Looks more like warrior paladin material.
I don't know about paladin because that's
Hunter, maybe?
supposed to kind of go along with a whole defending the weak and the holy light and all of this, which Reno is not. Like maybe warrior or rogue is what I would kind of, because he likes to grab things. He likes to steal things, so that might go with rogue. The goal with quests in Oldham, we were just talking about, compared to Ungoro, is they want them to be easier to complete, and they're designed more around mid-game rather than end-game. So if you can get them done right away, then it's like, for the rest of the game, I have this cool ability, but it's not like, I finally got it done, it's the end of the game, and now a big, huge thing happens.
And now you lose.
Yeah, exactly. So this is more mid-game use. There's no more plans for any card changes on or before the Oldham launch, so don't worry about any buffs or nerfs coming down the pipe before this goes live. And we will be getting a new lackey in the expansion. Then they talked about Reborn. It has a distinct effect that lets you know if it is active. Reborn minions will not retain buffs, which just makes sense.
Yeah, that's just logical.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure there's somebody on Reddit that thinks it should. Just because. The loyal opposition.
Reborn minions count as being summoned.
Okay.
So if you have cards that say whenever a whatever is summoned, it's going to count towards that. Mummy, Mummified, Embalmed, and Ankh were some of the other names considered for Reborn.
Ankh?
Ankh? No. I think they settled on the right
Ankh?
one. Yes, exactly.
Okay. I thought Ankhs had to do with fertility. That's what I thought. That's like a symbol of fertility. But we'll see. I could be wrong. Those of you who know, let me know. I'm curious.
They're interested in making older legendaries have updated animations if the community calls for it. So, community, if there's something out there that you've been thinking that you play and you like, but it's got like a lackluster entrance and it's not quite up there with all of the new cards that they've been creating, let them know, show your support, and they will go back and tweak some things like they did with Illidan having his like big wings come out, and it's like a much better entrance now.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Ziliax is in a comfortable spot for the team. Okay.
Also, Barnes apparently is
Sure.
comfortable too.
Well, it says Barnes has the team in a rough spot. Changing it could hurt the Res Priest archetype. But Dean Ayala thinks the archetype might function without it. So they're definitely talking about it.
Well, of course, here's the thing. Like, of course it can function without it. If I'm not mistaken, the problem with Barnes is it seemingly wins the game on turn 4. You know,
Yeah.
The other way Priest wins is on turn 6 they summon a decent minion, and then they just resurrect that one on turn 6. So, but 2 turns in aggro land is a huge amount of time. So it's the other point I saw that was really valid is like, well, hang on, they just like hard nerfed Naga Sea Witch, which killed that particular deck, and they hard nerfed Aviana, which almost killed that deck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So why the reluctancy with Barnes is probably the best point I've heard yet. That doesn't make sense. It's incongruous compared to what they've done in the past. They have hard nerfed cards into the ground in Wild. And why they just keep letting Barnes just kind of exist, I don't understand. So
I think
mean,
that
I'd
they're
like to-
worried about like priest archetypes just completely disappearing, because every time like they had to nerf Anduin, things were just so powerful that they have to keep going and adjusting priest, and then priest isn't going to have anything, I think, is a bit of the worry. One other thing that I thought was important to touch on, like the last thing, and then we can move on. The team has a more open outlook going forward towards changing cards more frequently.
Good.
Because in the past, we've all heard from them that they want us to feel like our cards have value, and if they're constantly changing them all the time, it just gives them like an ephemeral quality that's not really in key with what they were going for. But I think they've decided it's a lot more important to not leave things broken for a long time and to keep things fresh, like the buffs that they did. So they're going to be more flexible. Dean Ixar is curious if players think a small amount of new cards being released between expansions would be a good idea. A small release being like 5 to 40 cards. So they want feedback on, would it matter? Like, remember we talked about this before, that the cards in the adventures had to be like super powerful in order for them to have any impact at all, because it was such a small amount of cards being released.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so for 5 to even 40 cards to have any impact on the meta at all, I mean, there would be a certain amount of time for people just playing with them and seeing, will this do anything? Is this better? But then after that, unless they were powerful, I think they could just like be released and nothing would change in the meta at all.
Yeah, so it's the power versus, oh boy, a new shiny, and I'm happy because there's something different.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for it. I want to just see what it's like to have that be the world we live in terms of Hearthstone. You know, I want to know what it's like to have mid expansion releases.
Like, we've seen a little bit of it, right? Because they just give us like one card at a time. Like Vargoth was kind of given out as free, right? And then there was that the cape, Zale, I think it was called. Yeah,
it was part of this. That was part of the completing Dalaran Heist.
Yeah, so that's like not really in the expansion. It's just kind of like, here, have a card, and Snip Snap. So that
all good cards
done
too.
That already, with just like outside of the expansion, just sort of giving us new cards.
Yeah, I mean, Snip Snap sees play, and so does Vargoth.
But they're also super powerful.
But I'm okay with that. I think I'd rather have a handful of powerful cards that I can use and work with, as opposed to a bunch of cards that are just going to kind of clutter up the pool of cards I can draw out of packs that are decent. You know, I don't know. I don't need more cards. I just want good cards that I can play with. You know what I mean? Because I have a lot of cards I don't play with.
It's interesting, though, because these ones were pretty much given to everyone, right? Like,
they were.
You didn't have to go craft them.
Mm-hmm.
So people can't say that they're trying to give us ways to use up our dust.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and they gave us 2 new legendaries. You know, they gave us Brightwing and they gave us High Inquisitor Whitemane. You know, both are in the middle of power spectrum, middle lower, like meh power spectrum. You know, but they're curious. They do interesting things. So they they enticed me to play with them. I've been trying them. You know,
Yeah.
I play Brightwing in a odd rogue deck because our boy Slizzle, he does that, and he'll openly say it's not really a great card, but it sure makes games interesting because odd rogue is not necessarily a terribly interesting deck to play. It's pretty straightforward.
I thought Slizzle was a girl. Am I thinking of someone else?
You're thinking Slissa.
Ah, that's what it is. Slissa.
Slissa's a girl. Yep, and Slizzle is a dude.
Okay.
Slissa plays both wild and standard, and Slizzle plays just wild for the most part. So
sorry for getting you
He's a
guys
wild.
confused, guys.
It's all good. It's just that time of the week. It's late in the week.
So,
and you've had a rough morning. So
everyone, Grant has worked very hard and done a lot of research to bring you our next segment. So
did you want to do Uldum first?
Props to him.
And then,
you want to do the lore first?
Yeah, let's do the lore first, just in case. Well, that way we don't weary our listeners in case we go long on the heist stuff. We may not go long. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
But I'd like to hear the lore.
Maybe if you're interested or not. Yeah.
And people have been clamoring for lore. Dang it! So we'll give it to the people. Give what they want.
All right, Old Doom. I want to call it Oldham, though. But I will defer to the way that they're pronouncing it on the team, and I will say, this lore moment brought to you by Old Doom.
Is that like the Hearthstone version of GIF or GIF?
Probably. I think they were just trying to rhyme. Anyway. So,
yeah, good.
Oldham, along with Oldemon and what was the other one? Oldham, Oldemon, and they're all Olduar. Oldham, Olduar, and Oldemon were all places built to contain the old gods. That's their function.
Okay.
So the old gods, Yasharaj, Cthulhu, Yogg-Saron, and N'Zoth. Yasharaj was ripped to pieces by the leader of the Titans, Amenthul, so he didn't need a prison because he was ripped into tiny pieces. But when Amenthul, the leader of the Titans, saw that the war against the old gods was going badly, and they were just starting to lose it, and the old gods were twisting the minds of all of their minions and turning them against each other and making them infight and seeing things and hearing things, because that's how the old gods work. He was like, okay, I just can't stand this anymore, and reached his hand through the heavens down to the earth and grabbed Yasharaj, who was the leader, the biggest, the most powerful of the old gods, and just ripped him to pieces with his bare hands. Which is when they discovered the old gods, the way that they got to Azeroth was like meteors. They came through space like big chunks of evil darkness and smashed right into the planet and burrowed deep like parasites. So when he grabbed Yasharaj and ripped him out of the earth, there was a gaping wound left in the earth, and all of this earth blood was seeping out, which became the Well of Eternity. And they were really worried that the earth at that time was dead. That wound was so great and it had been damaged so much from Yasharaj being ripped out of it that it was going to die. So they were like, okay, we can't do that to the rest of them. So their only option was to imprison them, since they couldn't outright kill them. So they built Ulduar, Oldemon, and Old Doom. So Old Doom was for, let me see. Uldaman's the prison of Nizoth. Ulduar is the prison of Yogg-Saron. Uldum, Cthulhu. Cthulhu is where they imprisoned, or Uldum is where they imprisoned Cthulhu.
Do you think we'll see a third Cthulhu card?
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. It's like Egypt is kind of the whole theme of Uldum. It actually used to be like really lush and had lots of jungles and plants and everything. But it got attacked by the Thunder King, who is now the new hero power for the shaman. He and all of his armies wanted to take over the Forge of Origination, which is in Uldum. They thought that it was like this super powerful weapon, which it was, but they didn't really know what it was for. The Forge of Origination was meant, if the old gods ever completely corrupted the planet, it was meant to destroy all life on Azeroth. Down to its component parts.
Wow.
Reset button, basically. Because the worst thing that could happen would be to have a corrupted Titan. Mm-hmm. And that's what is born out of world souls, like after they wake up and they mature and they we've never seen what happens when one actually becomes a Titan, but world souls eventually grow up and become Titans. So the worst thing possible would be for a god to be corrupted by the old gods and be under his sway, because it would have the power of a god and then be evil. So they were like, okay, we're going to try and save this earth and heal it and build it back up, which is why they made the Forge of Origination and the Forge of Souls. Those were like massive Titan machinery that spread underground and around the world and was meant to build up the world soul and heal it from like all the damage of the wars and everything. But it was also a reset button. It was also all of the watchers, the people that they set to watch over Azeroth when they took off and went through the stars looking for more world souls. They were given explicit instructions that if things were to go bad, and there was like a long list of if this happens and this happens and this happens, then press button, reset. So that's what the Thunder King wanted. He wanted this massive weapon. Little did he know that if he ever actually used it, it would just wipe off all life from the entire
including himself.
World. Yeah. So in their panic, in order to defeat the Thunder King, who was coming on all of the Watchers and the Guardians of the Forge, they used it, but just a little. Like in a tiny radius comparative to the entire space of the Earth. It was like in a circle and just made a desert. Like turned it from this lush jungle, like what was the other place that they were in with all the dinosaurs and everything that we just did?
Ungoro?
Ungoro, yeah. Like picture that kind of life and bursting with energy and then desert. So that's what happened to Uldum. And now it's all like, it has pyramids and statues and it's very Egyptian themed. That's the whole feel of it there. So when Deathwing started the Cataclysm, that's a whole other story. The shield around Uldum was broken because of like the earthquakes and the volcanoes and everything that he caused when he started the Cataclysm. There was a shield around Uldum that was protecting it from anyone ever finding it for thousands of years. And then when Deathwing came up, the shield was broken. And all of a sudden, everyone on Azeroth was like, wait a minute, there's something there that was never there before. And of course, everyone wanted to like plunder it for its riches. So that's where we go and we run into Harrison Jones because he's Raiders of the Lost Ark trying to find all of the secrets of this new land that just opened up and find out what the Forge of Origination does. And Bran is there. You get to run through a bunch of different dungeons with him in World of Warcraft because he's always trying to figure out archaeological mysteries as well. And yeah, that's what Deathwing wants. He wants the super weapon of mass destruction. Sorry. And yeah, we have to keep him from getting the weapon of mass destruction because he doesn't mind destroying all life on Earth. That would be just fine with him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Tolvir live there. They're the guardians. They're the ones that have like a body of a cat, like a lion, and then it's almost like a centaur lion, and then upper body is like half human, half cat.
Is that like the Sunkeeper Tarim? Is that what he was? A Tolvir?
I think so.
Isn't there a Tolvir like card and hunter? Like it gains Divine Shield and Taunt or something like that if you played an elemental.
Okay, so Sunkeeper Tarim is the rock version. Because what happened was they were all made by the Titans, so they were all made out of metal and rock and like different stones and stuff. Mm-hmm. But then they were cursed by the old gods, by the curse of flesh. Because the old gods couldn't corrupt them. Because they were made out of rock and stone, and they didn't really have feelings. Like they were like almost like robots, and they did what they were told, and they did their jobs really well. So in order for the old gods to actually be able to have something to work with, they corrupted them and made them fleshy. And they hated that. Like they hated it so much. There was a whole faction of them that when Deathwing came, he said, you know what? I can turn you back to the way you were. I can make you rock again and metal. And they were like, now you're our boss. So there's a whole faction of them that actually went to work for Deathwing because he promised to give them back their metal bodies. And you have to fight against them. So there's half that are like cat bodies, and then there's the other ones that have like the Anubis heads, like jackals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's like Anubisoth sentinels and different things like that. Those are all from Oldham. All those themed cards.
What about the Obsidian statue? Like that priest card, Obsidian statue. Is that one of them?
That would be from there too as well.
It's cool how they kind of teased out a lot of that theme already. In the cards, at least.
Yeah. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, this has been in the game for a while. Anything that just kind of feels really Egyptian to you was probably Obsidian Destroyer. All of those ones. So when you go in World of Warcraft and find Harrison Jones and work with him to try and figure out what this huge weapon does, there's Nazis there.
Nazis?
Right. They just liked to give like a shout out to the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies and all those different movies that Harrison Ford was in. And so you're like fighting against goblins and humans that are talking with that kind of accent.
Oh gosh.
And does
he say I got a bad feeling about this?
And instead of like snakes, why did it have to be snakes? It was like bugs. Why did it have to be bugs?
Nice.
Yeah, so there was a lot of callbacks. The Ark of the Covenant, there's like a similar thing that you find in there. What was it called? The Coffer of Promise instead of the Ark of the Covenant.
The Coffer of Promise. Those synonyms, though.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, boy.
So there's one guy actually in, what is his name? Dark Pharaoh Tekan that you go up against in the heist. He's the king of the Neferset.
Yes. Yeah.
A faction of the Tolvir who regained their stone skins in exchange for their obedience to Deathwing. So that's who you're going to see in there. What else? Did I forget anything else? Did you have any other questions?
No, it's pretty cool. I didn't realize that the Tolvir were there and their interaction with Deathwing is actually relevant.
Yeah, I think that they're in a couple different places in World of Warcraft. Maybe like at the other, like Uldum, Ulduar, and Uldamon. They might be at different
Mm-hmm.
places, but yeah, they were created by Highkeeper Ra. He was one of the Titan forged left behind. Because the whole point of the Titans was to travel the entire universe and find planets that had world souls inside them, because not all of them did. It wasn't like every single planet had a world soul, and they were constantly searching for them. So once they set this whole thing up with a whole bunch of their Titan Forge, they were like, okay, peace, see you later. We're going to continue searching for more of our brethren. But once they were left, like some of them kept going on, and some of them just felt like their gods had abandoned them and started to kind of, especially after the Curse of Flesh, give into despair and be like, we have been abandoned by our gods to this curse, and why don't they come and set things right and fix everything? And so things kind of went downhill. There were a lot of them that were still doing their job and trying to fight against Deathwing, and you work with them in World of Warcraft and fight with them. But there were definitely some that were just like, where's our gods? Why aren't they here helping us?
I want my stone skin back. I'm out.
Spoilers,
I'll see you later.
they were dead. All of the Titans were killed. So that's why they didn't come back. It's not that they didn't care. They just lost a big battle.
Just when you're dead, you can't care.
Against the Burning Legion. Yeah, so.
Cool.
So that is that.
All right. There you have it. So as cards are released, let's see what happens. Let's see some of the flavor comes up, and we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, so far I've been seeing a lot of originals, a lot of Hearthstone original characters, and a lot of like people that were never in World of Warcraft. So, I mean, that's exciting for people that only know Hearthstone, because they get to touch back to like Reno again and stuff. For me, it's kind of like, well, I get nothing to talk about.
Hearthstone, give me stuff to talk about. We have a lore section.
Give me a couple
we
good
need
ones.
fuel for the lore section.
Exactly.
All right, well, I guess let's transition to the next part of the show, and we're going to get into the Dalaran Heist. So I made it a point this week to say, you know what, I want to get that pretty swanky Heroic Dalaran Heist card back. It's been a while since I've really pushed on a heroic mode anything.
Did you do all the other adventures? Do you have all of the heroic card backs?
I don't. The only one I don't have is I'm halfway through Naxxramas. I just don't want to make time for it. I just don't.
That one's the most RNG one. Oh.
That one's true. That one's tough. Like there's some tough stuff on it where you have to build just the right deck.
Yep. And draw your cards in your mulligan.
Yeah. I'm glad they're not doing that anymore. I'll be honest. The new stuff, the Dalaran Heist, was so fun, and it felt fair, hard and yet fair. In some of the older adventures, for those of you who didn't play them or are newer to the game, it used to be where you had to figure out kind of the exact sequencing of certain cards. So if you didn't draw them in your mulligan, you would immediately quit the game or quit the match and then restart it.
And sometimes it was like every single deck was Divine Favor, Inner Fire. Or was it Divine Favor? What's the other word? The other card? Divine Favor is the one in Paladin where you just draw a whole bunch of cards, isn't it?
Divine Spirit.
Divine Spirit. Thank you.
Yeah.
A lot of them kind of revolved around making a very huge minion very fast and smashing it into the boss's face, because that's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, I mean, the one benefit was if you lost to you played each boss in their own terms. So if you lost to a boss, you didn't start over and have to play 5 more bosses again before you could face it.
This is true.
That was the one uptick. With the most recent content, you lose to any boss and you start back over at boss 1 for the particular wing. At least they don't make you start the whole.
And then you have to build all of your card decks again. Like you can't go back in with the same deck. You have to start again from the beginning and choose treasures and choose. Yeah. It's a little disheartening sometimes.
That's the only thing I'm not sure if I like about it or not, but I still think I think it's still overall it's better. So
you need a save point. You need like midway through, if you get to like the tavern in the middle, that's like your save point, and then from that point on you can continue on from the beginning of that.
Yeah, I think
checkpoint.
I think that would be good.
Reached.
So when we talk about this, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, let's let me just say up front that this is not a completely comprehensive how to beat every single thing and how to do every single thing in the Dalaran heist, because it would be like 5 shows worth and it would not be very fun to listen to. The intent and goal of this portion is to give you a good framework for being successful on any of the wings, because it's been my experience that the same kind of formula works for every single wing. So when you're starting out the Heroic Dalaran Heist, and I would say the big difference, and Eve, you can correct me if you think differently, the big difference between Heroic and regular Dalaran Heist is in the regular Dalaran Heist, you could pick really almost any assortment of treasures, treasure cards, and things like that, and pretty much win. It wasn't terribly difficult because the boss power levels are lower and they can't do quite as broken things.
Yeah, I feel like that's by design. Whenever they've had a heroic version, the regular version is a lot easier. It's like, okay, those of you who want a challenge, heroic mode's for you. And regular is for everybody else who just wants to have a bit of fun and not beat their face against their TV.
But those of us who want that shiny cardback, which is very reminiscent of the Dalaran Flame cardback.
The rare flame back?
It's very reminiscent of it. It's just shinier. It's actually just more glitzy.
I actually haven't seen it because, spoilers, I haven't completed the heroic yet, so now I am intrigued.
Yeah, I actually like it so much that I have taken it off random card back for the time being, and I have it sporting in all my decks because I just think it's really cool. And I haven't seen a lot of it. That's the other thing. I have not seen a lot of this card back in my travels on the ladder and otherwise. So
Grant, this is what known to the youngsters as flexing.
Mm-hmm. The flexing.
You're flexing.
Stop flexing on me, man.
Exactly.
It's cool. I'm happy that I have it. I feel like I actually did something notable in the game for once in a long time. Let's see here. So let's get her going here. So the most important thing to understand about Heroic, in my opinion, is that you are going to basically be successful in a chapter. They call them chapters instead of wings. We can call them chapters and wings interchangeably. Your success is going to really be based on what kind of treasures you pull. Okay, because the name of the game is tempo, tempo, tempo. If you can get early tempo and build a big board fast, usually a big tall board fast, you can beat any boss with relative ease. So generally speaking, if you can angle your mind towards that, like, is this going to build me tempo? Is this going to help me get a board fast and early? You can beat any boss, because what I found is the opposite is true. Is you can play a first, second, third, or fourth boss, which usually every person should be able to beat, even on Heroic, without too much trouble. But if you don't get a good early board, even if it's not tall, you can't win. They just beat you. I lost today. I was playing Druid. I was like, I'm going to play some Druid on Heroic Wing 1, and I've already beaten the whole thing, but I was just kind of experimenting, and it was going awesome. And I had a really good tokeny thing going on. I had a lot of synergy, and I had a terrible, terrible mulligan for one of the bosses, and I had like 2 8-drops and a spell and something else, and I couldn't build a board, and they just got tempo on me, and I could never get it back on an easy boss. So the name of the game is tempo, tempo, tempo. The faster you can get stuff out, the faster you can cheat stuff out, the more likely you are to win. It's not an auto guarantee that you will win, but that's the game you're playing, in my opinion, when you're playing Heroic Tavern Brawl, any chapter. So
that's really interesting to me, because there's been some times when I went to pick a treasure where I was like, which do I go for? Do I go for the end game, which minions that cost more than 5 now cost 5? That's more like an end game thing to me in my head. Or do I go for something that's like, put 3 minions on the board at the beginning of the game? Get 3 1/1 boom bots to start off your game with, something that starts you off right away, give you an extra mana crystal or give you extra 2 cards or something like that.
Well, there's one of the later bosses. I think it's Laventhor. It's the 2-headed looking rhino thing. I don't remember what kind of creature it is. And he puts out minions right away that deal damage to all other minions, like right away. And then he puts out stuff like Frothing Berserkers and stuff that like get more powerful the more they're damaged, or that draw cards. And if you can't contest those things, you just lose. So if you're waiting till turn 4 or 5, even though you put down like a Lich King on turn 5, or you cheated out with the coin on turn 4, or you put out a Ysera or something, it doesn't matter because you're already behind. You got to be able to put stuff down soon, like turn 1 or 2 minions and things like that. And that's the way to go, in my opinion. So let's get into some of the step-by-step stuff. So I think the first thing you got to think about is the chapters. Every chapter, in most of you know this, but maybe you haven't thought about it the way I'm thinking about it. Maybe you have. Good for you if you have. Every chapter has like a particular uniqueness to it, and it will shape how you build your deck. For example, chapter 1 has a 0-3 chest that gives coins to both players. So if you can think, okay, what do coins do for me? Coins can give me tempo if I can cheat out stuff. So let's say I'm playing a druid deck and I'm going wide really fast. A couple extra coins can give me a couple extra minions, so that on turn 2, when I want to play something that buffs my whole board, then I have a big board and I can win fast. So you can build a deck that tends to want to go wide, maybe tokeny type of builds. So everything you pick is based around that. Chapter 3 has those 3 unmovable tokens, kind of like the Sherazin pod or the Darkness pod, that just kind of sits there and you can't do anything with it. It doesn't interact, you can't buff it, it's just there. So if there's 3 unmovable tokens on the board, that means you have 4 slots for minions. So do you really want to pick a deck that goes wide?
No, you need tall.
You need tall. So you approach your whole build of, I need to pick minions that I can get out tall. And if I can't get a bunch of tall minions out on this deck that can survive and do stuff for me, then I'm going to lose. And so that's sort of kind of the way you think about the chapters. You have to know that. Chapter 4, they swap the attack and health of minions. So picking that Ysera is not such a good card, because a 12-4 is easy to clear, even though you do get the 1 card. But like picking minions when you're picking your buckets that are matched health, that's the way to go. So you have to kind of make sure that you're not just picking your buckets based on, oh, this is I love these cards. These are my favorite cards. They're so powerful. You think, yeah, they're powerful, but a 6-2 is kind of not fun, you know? I mean, and the funny thing is it can even affect the bosses adversely, like when they're playing out their what's the 3/8 that summons a minion out of the deck when it dies. It's not Death Knight. It's what is it? It's a wild card, but when it's an 8/3, it's easy to clear, and you're like, haha, free minion for me, sucker.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways.
Death Knight. It was something like that.
It might be Death Knight. He says, "Death does not scare me." When you drop.
Yeah, it was like the ultimate taunt card back in the day. Priest used it a ton.
Yeah, because it was a 3 cost, and you could Divine Spirit Interfire that, and off the races. So you have to just understand that. Like Wing 5, nothing special about the board, but there's 12 bosses. Oof. And the last 4 are doozies. So you have to you're going to beat those first 8 like nothing. You're like, man, why can't I beat the other 8 and the other 4 chapters? It's because the last 4 are really hard. So getting to the 9th boss is kind of like getting to rank 5 on ladder, and then
dang, what an analogy.
So it's like getting rank 5. You're going to get there relatively easy. It's just the last 4 are going to give you trouble if you didn't build a strong deck. So you have to build a deck that's so strong that you can go 10, 11, 12 games, no problem. So then you have to decide if you're going to use. So you're picking the chapter. Then you have to decide what anomaly you're going to pick. Now, I like a lot of the anomalies, and a lot of them are super tempting, but I think some of them are actually sort of. I think all of them are double-edged swords.
Because they do for you the same as they do for the bosses?
Yes.
Ooh.
It's not just one-sided. So you have to know that. If you don't know that, it can be really bad. Now, for example, Arcane is my favorite one. It's all spells cost 2 less. So if you're playing Paladin and you have Ring the Bells, that's a 2-cost spell, right?
So it's now 0.
It's a 0-cost spell, and it echoes. So you can make a 1,000 minion if you want and punch that 10/10 boss in the face. You know what I mean?
You don't get a rope.
You don't get a rope. There's no rope in Tavern Brawl. I mean, not Tavern Brawl. There's no rope in the adventure. So that's great. It was really great on the wing that Madame Goya is the final boss, the 8th boss, because she puts ransom cards in your hand, and they cost 2. So she ransoms your cards and thinks she's doing all kinds of awesome stuff to you, but you have that cost 2 less, so you just cycle it back out, and she actually, her big detractor and what makes her hard is now all of a sudden a non-factor. So if you're playing the wing that has Madame Goya as the final boss, I think it's the 3rd wing, I want to say. To look it up. Let me just see here.
Dalaran Heist.
I think it's the yes, it's the 4th wing. I'm sorry. It's the underbelly. Yeah, Madame Goya is she's the 8th boss on the 4th wing. Yep. So she does that to you. So if you know you're playing that wing and you check the anomaly and it says spells cost 2 less, you just got yourself in a really good position. That doesn't mean you're going to play her for sure, because the other boss you could play is Boommaster Flark, and he's hard. They're both hard. So, because he blows everything up. But I think Madame Goya is actually a little bit more difficult without that. So, very important that you consider anomalies. Keep in mind stuff like all battle cries trigger twice. I don't like picking things as a general rule that like lock me into having to pick a particular mechanic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's useless.
So
if you
I don't
have
want
a
to.
bunch of battle cries.
Yeah, and a lot of times the battle cry minions that you might be offering the buckets are not what you want to be playing to win the game. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So yeah, great. My battle cries trigger twice. So does my bosses, and I didn't have good buckets offered to me where battle cries are relevant. So my boss is just going to steamroll me. Fishy is funny with Murlocs occasionally just showing up on the board. That can be funny, and that's sort of an RNG fest because sometimes your Murloc is amazing. Like you get a old Murkai and they get a little tiny fin, and sometimes it's the other way around. So it's one of those things.
How often do they
Glittering
show up?
gains.
Have you tried that one?
I've tried that one. I actually beat one of the wings with Shaman, and I had that going on as an anomaly. So it didn't hurt me too much because I didn't care that they got a Murloc because my plan was go wide and buff my minions. So Shaman was a good class for that. So that worked my favor. So that's something you have to think about. You have to think, okay, is this anomaly going to help me or hurt me? If it helps me, does it help me actually more than it's going to help the opponent? Or is it going to be kind of a net zero? Or is it going to really just like let my opponent just beat me on boss 2?
Well, I was thinking if they occasionally join the battle, if you had the one with the 3 unmovable tokens on the board, you might really not like that. If you had like a free spot open and then all of a sudden a Murloc filled it. I mean, you could just kill it off and replace it with something else, I suppose.
Yeah. Like and some I would say to avoid are stuff like the hallucination, which both players start with 10 hallucinations in their deck. When you're trying to build your dungeon crawl deck, if you will, you don't want a bunch of extra cards cluttering up the pool. You don't want 10 hallucination cards in your deck that may give you something good and may not, when you really want to be pulling your big fatties or your cards to clear a board or something like that. Because when you go to the bar and see Bartender Bob, right, he gives you the option to kind of clean out some of your cards. And you should take that option sometimes. Like, it's sometimes good just to wipe out some cards out of your deck just to thin your deck. You know what I mean? Like, when anybody who's played Magic knows that 60-card deck is really the way to go, not an 80-card deck for the most part. You don't want those extra 20 cards that kind of sort of water down your win con.
Yeah,
So,
there's times
there's a
when
bunch
like
of
the
other
ones you
ones.
started out with are just really lame, depending on what your game plan is, and you will not play them. So it's just good to not pull them.
And like Infused is one that when you summon a minion, it'll give them either Taunt, Divine Shield, Rush, or Wind Fury at random. The last thing you want is to be playing one of the bosses that summons a Fel Reaver and it gets Wind Fury, and you don't have the particular exact answer, and they hit you in the dome for 16. Because you might be building a great deck, but because they high roll you like that just sucks. So I don't like all the anomalies. I think if the circumstances are right, if you know what the end game kind of is, what the bosses can and can't do, but you know what your deck can and can do, and you can weigh the cost, it could be beneficial. Like as in my case with arcane spells, and all the spells cost 2 less against Madame Goya. That was like GG easy. But like, you don't want to like sabotage yourself by picking an RNG based thing that just makes you salty and you're like, why did I pick that? You don't want to pick all minions have 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy. You don't want that. It's just not something you want to deal with. So it's best to leave it alone unless you just want to have a clown fiesta for a run and just see what happens, because that's what it'll turn into. But the thing is if you're playing heroic, odds are you're playing it to win. Most people, at least, I'm assuming they'd play it to win.
Yeah.
Because I would just play regular if I was just trying to make a clown fiesta deck, just so that I didn't have, I didn't care. So, we've talked about, you got to kind of know your chapter, what it is that you should be building around. We've talked about anomalies, good, bad, and the ugly.
What about reductive and wild magic?
Reductive and wild magic. Well, at the end of each player's turn is reductive. Reduce the cost of cards in their hand by 1. Well, have you ever played a game where both players had Thorson on the board and they started reducing cards in the opposite? How'd you feel about that?
Yeah, you don't want the boss to have that power.
You really don't. Especially like if you're trying to build a deck where maybe you get one of the treasures that says enemy minions cost 1 more, and then you just kind of subvert that by, having, oh shoot, I just picked the wrong treasure because I forgot, In wild magic, all spells cast an additional time, but that's fine except for targets chosen randomly. Do you really want to be throwing burn at a fate? Like if you're playing mage and you're casting fireballs, do you want fireball going to your face when it should have gone to a minion or the other? I don't like that sort of variance.
Like for druid, I think it's a little bit safe because you are going to be buffing your minions and it says it right on the card, so it wouldn't randomly be able to work against its own coding.
Well, so like in that instance, it's great.
Yeah.
So if you know you're going to play druid and you're on a certain wing that druid is good, then wild magic is an excellent choice. But I think it's very situational, and I think you have to kind of know in advance what you're going to be doing or going to try to be doing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's sound advice, Eve. that's great. So now you've kind of decided if you want to use anomaly, because you can pick whether or not it's anomaly before you pick the class. You know what chapter you're going to do. Now the next step is classes. So it's I found it really interesting that a couple weeks ago they released kind of what their opinion from Team 5, what each class should sort of embody and represent, right? And what I noticed was that the classes in the Dalaran Heist really embody those kind of strengths and weaknesses. So you kind of got to know what your class can do and what it can't do as a class. Kind of know what cards are in there, maybe study some of the preliminary deck lists. And then you have to kind of know what the bosses, as you get towards the end of each wing or chapter, they can do. So for example, if you're playing like, let's say you're playing Joybuzz, right? Geppetto Joybuzz. Well, he's going to get a lot of weenie minions on the board, right? He's going to get Ragnaroses and Sylvanuses that are 1/1 because he's going to cast Dollmaster. He has basically the Dollmaster, is it Dorian? Yeah, Dollmaster Dorian, where he gets a 1/1 of whatever he pulls every single time. So you want to, that. And so you have to build your deck knowing that you need to be able to like have a bunch of guys on the board to deal with it, or you need to have some kind of board clear. So you pick your class knowing that, Druid and Shaman can deal with that via minions. So could Paladin, Warrior, not really. Priest, not really. Mage could deal with it with Burn and in arcane spells. So those are the classes you'd want to pick on that particular wing. Right? You got to know, but if you're playing like the final wing with 12 bosses, you're going to need a lot of versatility because they have all the different kinds of bosses. I personally like classes that are more versatile, that have board clear and strong minions. Whatever their class tends to specialize in, I tend to pick like in their buckets and then treasures that will help me capitalize on those particular specialties. And I think furthermore, you want to make sure that you attempt to build around in your mind, a predefined win condition based on how, like a little bit of preliminary setup. And you kind of have to wait until the treasures are offered to you. Once the treasures are offered to you, then I think you need to set a definite win con and try not to deviate from it. Because if you try to get to a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you'll find that your deck just is very disjunct and doesn't work very well, and you just lose at some point in time.
It has to be as
and you
refined
kind of know
as you can make it under the circumstance.
As refined as you can make it. So you got to know what your class can do. So don't try to play a warrior deck and then try to go wide, because that's not what that deck's going to do. because warrior just doesn't do that very well. So having said that, now that you pick your class, now hero powers. Keep in mind, if you're playing it on the first time, you only get one choice of hero power. You get the first one. You get the basic.
You
have
don't
to
have to
unlock
unlock
the
them
other
again
hero
for the
powers.
heroic, do you?
Yes, you do.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. You unlock them again for the heroic.
You don't just like have all the ones you unlocked for the regular version? Oh,
Nope.
So you just
and
get,
if I'm wrong
what's
about
the first
that,
one for
send me
mage, then?
mail. The first one's just your regular one, burn. The second one is reduce a minion's. It's called Burning Wit. You reduce a random card in your hand by 2. And then the third one, which is my personal favorite, is Frostburn, which freezes a minion, and if it's already frozen, it does 2 damage. So that one's really, really good. But let's talk about some. So I found that the hero powers that I wanted to pick were the ones that really helped me out, were ones that helped with tempo. So when you're playing that game and you have a good board, and then they drop a Fell Reaver or they drop a big giant minion, they cheat it out. You're not worried. You go, freeze you. You don't get to play now, and I'm going to develop my board. Oh, and I'll just freeze you again the next turn, and you don't get to play now, and I'm just going to develop my board. And so it makes the match way easier. I think Frostburn is possibly the best one. Another really good one is I really like Druid's Life Bloom, which restores a minion to full health. So again, it's a tempo thing, right? I can trade, and then I can heal you if I need to. It's not great, but it's good. Shaman's Evolution is pretty good too. It evolves to a minion that costs 1 more. So again, trade, and I'm going to heal you into a different minion that's actually, in theory, better. Sometimes you get, one of the outliers that's like a 6 cost 2/2.
Or a 1/1.
Or a 1/1. That happens. But generally speaking, I think it's consistent enough that it's going to be better or on par, and it'll be a full health minion. Make sure that you do trade with it first before you do that, because otherwise you'll miss out on damage. Some of the ones that I liked that I thought were okay was Hunter's Opportunist. It gives a minion +2 attack for a turn. So it does what Hunter does, right? It wants to push face damage. It helps you get bored by trading if you need to. So it can make a 1/1 actually be useful. Trade into some pesky 0/3s or get that treasure chest, that 0/3 treasure chest in the first wing. Shaman's Refresh is decent. Just draw a card. So you get basically the Warlock hero power, because it only costs you 1 to draw the card, but you overload for 1. So Mage's Burning Wit reduces a random card in your hand by 2, which could be good. But in theory, what I found was if I'm picking my treasures right, I don't need to be reducing my cards because they're already reduced. But we'll get into that in a second. And bad ones. Hunter's Pet Training, which is add a 1/1 shifting chameleon to your hand. That thing sucks. Because it gives a chameleon, and it's in it. You remember like Shifter Xeris? You know how it would change into a different card.
So it's basically a Shifter Xeris.
Basically, and it's not fun because you get something either too expensive or not useful, and you're just like, I don't care about this. And it's adding a card to your hand, so you're spending mana for something that's not going to do anything until the next turn. Pretty much anything Priest has is not very good. Although Distort, which is swap an attack and health of a minion, it can be okay situationally. So darn, they put up a 3/8. Well, now it's an 8/3. I can deal with that. So if I was playing Priest, that would probably be the one I'd want to go with. Paladin's Backup, which is add 3/1 silver hand recruits to your hand. That's dumb because you're spending mana to put stuff in your hand. That's not very useful. So unless you're going wide and you can just drop it for free or something.
Hero power.
It would be great. Well, if you can buff minions, if you have like the flag, what's that card? It's I don't remember what it's called. The aura effect that basically makes your
all of your
minions all have 1/1
plus
captured flag. It's called captured flag. Any tokens, any minion has an automatic +1/+1 buff. Boombots have +1/+1 buff. It's okay, but still, you're spending 1 mana. You're spending 2 mana to get the cards, and then you're having to play each one for 1 mana just to get the 2/2. So it's kind of like,
well, Paladin does have a lot of buff things in your hand cards. So if you're building a deck around buff things in your hand, and you take the 3/1/1 silver hand recruits and put them in your hand, and then buff all the things in your hand, like that could go out of control. But they don't really have any. This has more attack and health depending on what you have in your hand, unless you have the giants, which are cheaper for all the cards that you have in your hand. Maybe see synergy like
Well,
that.
and the thing is that sounds like a very reasonable way to play it, but the reality is to beat the heroic wings, you don't have time to build up hand, put the stuff in hand, build it in your hand, and then play it. You have to just be able to drop it.
It's too slow.
It's too slow, yeah, because those bosses are going to destroy you. If any of the heroic dungeon bosses 1 through 8 get a really good board on you and keep it for a turn, you're dead. You just lose. Even turn boss 1 or 2. So anything that kind of slows you up is something that I wouldn't be taking. It's not good. It seems good. It seems cool. Oh yeah, I get 3/1/1s. I like playing dude paladin. I'm gonna buff them all up with my quartermaster, and we're gonna just go to town. It's like, no, you don't understand. You'll be dead.
Mm-hmm. It's too late.
Okay,
You're already dead.
You'll be dead. Kind of like this little one's not worth the trouble. Anyways. Star Wars there. So you've been playing, and you're going to be offered treasure cards. Now, everybody, whenever you play a dungeon a wing, you're going to get offered 2 treasure cards, and then you're going to get offered 2 passive treasure cards, and there's a difference. Treasure cards are cards that you actually have to play. They cost you mana. You drop them like they're hot. Okay. You want to pick based on synergy with your deck if possible. But generally, if it's not totally synergistic, just think about how does this help my tempo? If you think, how does this help the tempo of my board? Does it like flip the board? Does it like really buff my minions? Does it make them, does it give them health? Does it heal them? Things like that. That would be better than just picking a random one. So these are the treasures that I think are great picks. And
why is Wondrous Wisdom Ball not at the very top of the list?
It's on my second choices. And the reason it's not at the top of the list because in regular, it's awesome. It is so funny and fun. I love it. I beat a couple wings on the regular with it. I think I might have beaten one heroic wing with it, but it's random. You can't rely on it. But when it does good stuff, it does great. One time it bought me an extra turn, and I needed an extra turn, and I won because of it. But you can't bank on it, and that's the thing is you got to be able to bank on.
All right.
It doing
Grant
something like
says, "Don't risk the random."
I don't like, not for heroic, I don't like risking the random. I like to be in control because it's too time consuming and it's too difficult. If you find yourself not dominating, like really hard dominating at the beginning of every game, your deck's probably not strong enough to beat Khadgar and the rest of the boys on boss 10, 11, 12 in the 5th wing. So
I'm giving you a phrase that pays. Grant's phrase that pays is, don't risk the random.
Which is weird because I tend to like cards that do random things like in like ladder, because a little bit of that you can baffle your opponent. But you see, computer bosses in heroic, they don't care. Oh, your random stuff, I don't care about that. I'm still going to do my thing, and I'm going to beat you down badly.
When you're try-harding, you have to play by the numbers.
Mm-hmm. So the cards that are my like auto picks are Dreamgrove Ring, which is a 9-cost spell that you pick a legendary minion, you summon 5 copies of it. It's pretty incredible to summon 5 Ragnaroses.
But that's so
I've done
late.
it. I have a picture of it.
It's 9 mana.
Yes, but when you have your whole deck reduced in cost by half, and it costs you 4, it's pretty good.
Okay, Dreamgrove Ring. You know what? I feel like I haven't picked that very much.
Dreamgrove Ring. Well, if it summons you like 5 Lich Kings or 5 Sogoth the Slitherer or 5 big giant fatty minions or 5 Yseras, and you've been playing the game well and you've had a strong deck, oh gosh, it can flip the board. It just totally flips it.
Okay, Dreamgrove Ring.
It's good. It's really good. I'll send you a picture of my 5 Ragnaroses that hit.
Oh, that's
that won the
nice.
It's stupid. Okay, Evil Propaganda. It's a 10-cost spell. Take control of all enemy minions. This card has won me so many games.
Okay.
In fact, it helped me beat the Ragnaros in the Tavern Brawl this week, where he had a bunch of 8/8s, and I was like, boop, they're mine. So I had a bunch of 8/8 like Molten Giants and stuff that I had no board. It was like, I need to top deck it. Oh, top deck Evil Propaganda. You lose, noob. So, and just hit him in the dome. So that card is awesome. It seems like it's high costed, but in a match where if you find yourself getting behind, and if you have any kind of reduction on spells in your deck, this card is just stupid. The ... candles. It's a 3-cross twin spell. It basically can be played 4 times for 3 damage to all enemy minions. Super good for board clears. 3 costs to clear a board. You know, you can clear some mega boards with this card. Very good, because it puts it back in your hand. You can use it again. Very good for if you know the wing that you're on has bosses that tend to have lots of stuff.
And if they get like a
my
head
strong-
start on you, it's cheap enough that you can start removing their big, huge board
Yes.
fast.
You can flip the board. You can flip a board with that card because it's cheap enough. So you can develop and flip, which is why it's good. Some really strong second choices. It's kind of like you didn't get to pick any of the above formerly mentioned cards, and they didn't really have anything other good, but these can still do well for you. Elder Tagawag. He's a 3-cost 4/4 minion that does 4 damage to all enemy minions and is death rattled back in your deck. So he dies, he goes right back in your deck. He's not as good as the Candles because, well, he's a minion, and when he dies, he goes back. You see, Twin Spell is a lot more predictable. Anoia Horn is actually pretty good because it can just lock down a board. It's a very tempo-based card because it summons Anoiatrons, and what's the Anoiatron that's like the heavy metal one? It's the, what is it? Basically, Anoio somethings with Divine Shield and Taunt.
Okay.
So can be pretty good. And a board full of that is quite difficult to deal with. The box, which is basically each turn this is in your hand, transform into a random treasure. So if you hold it long enough, it can be
So you
one
could
of the
get
formerly
Dream
mentioned
Girl Ring
things.
or Evil Propaganda or the Candles?
Yep. And if you cast, I've gotten the Candles off it before, and once you cast it, you keep all the Twin Spell. So the box can be good.
Okay.
Untold Splendor is not too bad. It can shuffles 5 random treasures into your deck, and it shows them all up so you see really quick what they are. It can be decent.
How much is Untold Splendor?
Especially if you get. Oh, I forgot. I think it's like 5 mana, I think.
Okay.
I forgot to write it down. Big Boomba, which is destroy all minions, and then it does it immediately again on the next turn. So it's kind of a tempo card. So it's kind of like a, in case of emergency, break glass card, which sometimes you need. You know, and then Swamp Queen's Call, which is a 2-cost, transform your minions into random legendary minions. It's echoed, so it's repeatable. So that card is really good. It's actually a really strong pick if you're running like a tokeny board. So if you got a bunch of 1/1s or 2/2s and you hit that, all of a sudden you can have a board full of 6/6s. Usually that's about what it is. I tried it today where I had a full board of druid minions that were wimpy, and I got a bunch of health, and I was experimenting. I hit it. I had a board like a 6/5, an 8/8, a 7/7, a 6/6, and then I did it again. And on average, the health is like 6/6 on average. So pretty strong. You can flip a board real quick.
Untold Splendor is
So
one
here's
mana.
the ones. Okay, Untold. Oh, it's 1 mana. Okay, my bad. Thank you for checking that out. So here's the ones that you want to avoid like the plague. They seem like they might be good, but they suck. You don't want to choose these cards because they have very narrow application. So any card that seems to have a very overly specific application, you don't want to use. And conversely, overly broad. Okay, like for example, Dupla Transmogrifier is a 4-cost spell where it says choose a friendly minion and replace all minions in your adventure deck with copies of it.
That seems bad.
Is that something that seems real bad? Do you really want to have an entire deck full of Uncle Tonys?
No answers.
I mean, they're great minions, but you
don't have any clear.
You know what I mean?
You don't have any health. You don't have any card draw. Like no, yeah.
Well, it's just minions. It just replaces minions, so you keep your spells, but still.
All minions. Okay, just not all cards. Just all minions. All right.
And I could see a world where it could be good, but
like at some point in the game, if you're getting towards the end, you could turn the rest of them into Ragnaroses.
You could, but you'd have to have played a Ragnaros first and have one on the board.
Right.
So it's hard. It's kind of forcing a square peg through a round hole, in my opinion.
Yeah, I see that.
Illustra the Immortal is a 3-cost 1/1 minion, and it reads: recast all spells you've cast on this minion this run. So anything you played on it in the first boss and you're on the 7th boss, it'll get that spell cast on it. But
you still have to cast all bunch of spells on her.
Well, you'd have to be playing a class where you're doing buff spells, 1, which is only a couple classes. 2, you actually have to have done it. You know what I mean? And is that what you want to be doing? Like the cost is right, but you have had to do so much prep work to get to that point, and then it's just 1 card. You know, it's not going to flip the board. You know, it doesn't have a tremendous amount of tempo unless for some reason it's like a 30-30. and your opponent
Really
can't
bad,
deal
guys.
with it.
Don't
You know what
choose. I mean? Awful.
And then Loyal Henchman is a 1-cost 1/1 minion. Start of the game, draw this card. It has Taunt. Each turn, this is in your hand, gain 1/1. Seems good, but we've seen a lot of cards that like start in the game and it does a thing, and it's just turn 5, it's still a 5/5. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you have
So
to have like a spot in your hand where a card is sitting that you're not using.
yeah. So seems decent, but it's not. So don't ever pick these. Don't pick these cards. These are and there are more. Now keep in mind, I'm not being completely comprehensive. I feel like I'm being fairly thorough, but there's a lot of cards that, yeah, you could say, yeah, what about this one? What about that one? Yes, but these are the ones that like I would rather have you focus on what to do rather than what not to do when you're playing Heroic Tavern Brawl, if that makes any sense. I think it's easier to have a proactive game plan. These are the things I want to do, as opposed to these are the things I want to avoid. Moving along. So then there's the passive treasure effects. They act like what you in Magic you'd call an aura effect. And these are the ones that can make or break your deck, in my opinion. So these are what I call the OP auto picks. Like, you don't even ask yourself, you just pick it. If you see Robes of Gaudiness, it reads passive, your cards cost half rounded down, but you can only play 2 cards per turn, period. So if you play a coin and then another card.
Scary, right? This is why I haven't chosen it before, because you can only play 2 cards a turn. So what is the point of cards being super cheap if you can only play 2 of them?
If you can play an Alexstrasza for 4 and burst him down to 15, and then play Uncle Tony the next turn, play him for 4, and then play a spell for 1 and get a fireball, you have Tempo City, because it doesn't reduce
but you can only play 2 fireballs a turn.
Minions. So it sounds counterintuitive, but it's actually amazing because you can play really expensive, really powerful minions right out of the gate.
Okay. I trust you, Grant.
And
I would not have picked this in my own brain, but you have had experience.
I used it again in Tavern Ball this week and beat it in 22 minutes because all my cards were super cheap. Because then, once I know I have Robes of Gaudiness, I'm taking the big fat legendary minions. And then when I mulligan, I'm taking the big cards. I'm holding onto the big cards because they cost half the price.
Okay. You've convinced me.
See, but then now I gotta tandem this with Emerald Goggles, which is another auto pick. Seems kind of like it's the leftmost card in your hand, costs 2 less. So I actually got lucky and I picked Emerald Goggles and Robes of Gaudiness on my wing 5, which means Uncle Tony costs 1.
Yeah, that'd do it.
It costs 1. Turn 1 Uncle Tony, deal. You know what I mean? Or Antonidas, turn 1. So, and then another really good one is Rocket Backpacks. Your minions have rush. You want to talk about tempo. If all of your minions can hit face.
Well, not face.
I mean, not face. I mean, if they can trade right away, that's awesome. So awesome.
Okay.
Especially like on decks that bosses that can summon stuff like with their hero power and it puts minions on the board. The thing is where this one kind of backfires a little bit is on the wing where health and attack are flipped, because all of a sudden everybody's health is low, and so you're kind of trading and not making it's not as easy to make favorable trades. So it's something to watch out for. Secondary strong picks, like I think, are great cards because you're not going to get offered Robes of Gaudiness, Emerald Goggles, or Rocket Backpacks every time you run a wing or a chapter. But you will often get offered Scepter of Summoning, which is your minions that cost more than 5 cost 5. It's not bad. It's, so if you know that, then you pick big minions, right? In your buckets. Wondrous Wisdom Ball, I think, is a great pick. It occasionally gives you good advice or does really cool things for you. Again, it's a little unpredictable, which is why I think it's sort of like a second pick. So if I had a choice between picking Emerald Goggles or Wondrous Wisdom Ball, I pick the Goggles. Glyph of Warding. Enemy minions cost 1 more. Some bosses, they don't know what to do if they have to wait a turn, and you can build that tempo, and you can get your board built before they can get their board built. Potion of Vitality, doubling your starting health. There are some bosses that like you can actually play behind if you know that you have Potion of Vitality because you have 90 health suddenly. I noticed that when you do Potion of Vitality, you almost always have 20 more health than any boss. So, because your health scales up with the bosses, but you're always a little less. But if you double it, you tend to be about, on average, 20 health more. And that can be the difference. Crystal gems start with an extra mana crystal. Again, it's tempo, like a druid. Expedite, your minions cost 1 less. Kind of similar to extra mana crystal, very similar to it at least, except it just doesn't apply to spells. Let's see here. And this captured flag, if you know you're running a token deck, this is a must-have. By the way, sometimes they'll offer you the same treasures. So on your first pick, you can pick. I picked captured flag, and my second pick, I picked captured flag. Granted, it was the best one offered, but having +2/+2 on all of my minions,
That's huge.
it's great.
I didn't realize that you
huge.
got
It's
them
huge.
offered more than once.
Yep, you can do that. Now, obviously, you don't want to pick Robes of Gaudiness twice because I don't think it goes half and then half. You know what I mean?
It's probably just the same thing.
But like stuff like +1/+1 buff, it's nice. I actually like Togwaggle's dice, even though I think people don't like it because
random.
Again,
you're breaking your own.
It's
rule.
a little random, but when you have a handful of minions that are huge, they cost 0, 0, 1, and 2, and you can just have a huge board right away. It's not too bad. It does backfire sometimes, where like, every minion in your hand is 8/8, 8 cost, even though they're like normally 3 or 4 cost minions. That does happen, but I found it to be more beneficial than not. So I like it if you have other options. So if it's Togwaggle's dice, or then we get into my never pick stuff, like never pick Mysterious Tome. Start the game with 3 random secrets.
I have totally picked Mysterious Tome before.
Don't do that. It's not. It might be great. It might give you some awesome secrets, but that's it. It has a one-time effect. Maybe. Because remember, it's not just mage secrets. It's any secrets.
Paladin and Hunter.
It's Hunter and maybe Rogue even, because
secrets too.
Robe of the Magi, spell damage +3. That card has never been good, and it's been one of the passive treasures in some of the last few expansions. Hand of Rafam, at the start of the game, give your opponent 2 cursed cards. That sucks. That card's no good. They immediately get rid of it, and you've done 2 damage. Yippee-ki-yay! You've tickled them with their 2 damage on an 80 health boss. First aid kit. At the end of your turn, restore 2 health to all friendly characters. Not good. The thing is the power level in the spectrum of passive treasure cards is so vast. Like, it goes from, I can discount everything in your deck half to I'll give you a little bit of health, or I'll kind of poke your opponent, and annoy them. Book of Wonders has got to be the worst one. At the start of the game, shuffle 10 Scrolls of Wonder into your deck.
Could be so bad.
Scrolls of Wonder, it could be like total RNG, like Yahtzee, or it could be like, oh, that doesn't help me, I just wasted. See, the thing is if you find yourself having to waste your pick on something like that in the passive treasures, you can't win the Heroic Brawl. You can't. Or the Heroic runs. You can't do it because you need your deck to be basically busted. Mm-hmm. And shuffling 10 Scrolls of Wonder into your deck is not making your deck busted. It's making it worse.
You can have an amazing board, and then it casts Vanish.
Yep. And it casts Vanish. So rather than get into like how to like plan around all the different types of bosses, I found it more helpful to I needed to focus on making a busted deck. A deck that could really get tempo early and maintain it throughout the game. And I found that the aura effects, the stuff that was persistent, like halving my cards, discounting them by 2, discounting spells by 2, really cheap, repeatable removal, getting a lot of minions out early and buffing them up really fast. Those are the ways to win in almost any wing. You know what I mean? So if you think about, what is the lay of the land? Is there stuff I got to play around? Like, are there unmovable tokens? Is there a chest so I can get coins so I can cheat stuff out? Anomaly. Is this anomaly going to help me or really hurt me on the wing? Classes. Is the class I'm playing actually ideal for this wing, or is it actually suboptimal for this wing? Unless you just like to punish yourself. Hero powers. Is this hero power going to help me, or is it going to be utterly useless? Because, hero powers shouldn't be the difference between winning a game or not. But I can tell you, when you can stop a big giant minion from hitting you in the face and develop your board, that's worth. Treasure cards need to do work for you. They need to be able to flip boards, They need to be able to take control of enemies. That's what they need to be doing. The passive card and the passives need to just be making you just be able to do mean, awful, evil things to the computer as fast as humanly possible. And if you take that approach, you'll be a lot more successful. That doesn't mean you're going to win on the first time you try to play Wing 5 of Heroic. It doesn't mean you're going to win. It means that you have a good strategy that will work, assuming you get the right draws and assuming you get the right picks from your treasures and your buckets. Have I missed anything in a general sense, Eve?
No, I think that's as good as you can do, because you never know what people are going to be offered to build a deck with for cards. So, do you constantly keep an eye on your curve when picking
Yep.
bundles?
Yep. I keep an eye on my curve a lot, actually, because it's really easy to forget what you've picked and go, oh, I would like to have another Lich King in my deck, but you really don't want any more 8/8s, or 8-cost minions. Like, what was it? That's why I lost today with my Druid list, is I had an awesome tokeny thing going on, and I had 2 buckets in a row that offered me only expensive cards. And so I picked expensive cards. I'm like, well, I guess I got to pick this one. And then I lost to like the 5th boss, number 5, because I had an opening hand of 8-cost minions. It just drew them all. I had no buff spells. I had no early minions, and they built a board, and I could never get it back.
So
And I
since
lost.
tempo is the name of the game, you are going for more like low cost minions, unless you're like completely full of them and you have a ton, and then you can start thinking about your end game.
Yeah, I try not to pick the big fatty minions in the early buckets. I try to pick stuff that kind of goes towards my win con. And then after I know what my passive treasures are, really it's your passive treasures, then I can say, okay, I know my cards are being half. Yeah, I want 5 more Uncle Tonys. Or I want another Ysera or 2, and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Once
Then you can start
have
picking that.
Everything's rounded down by half, you can just feel free to take whatever bucket.
Yeah, because sometimes your passive treasures really enable you to pick stuff like that, stuff you wouldn't normally pick. So you kind of have to keep an eye on like what cards are in your deck, because like when you get to see Bartender Bob, he can give you the option to get rid of some of those cards that you really don't want, but you kind of had to pick anyways. So you should know what's in your deck and utilize those cards. Sometimes, they give you the free option to just reset the board. If you look at it and go, I don't like any of these cards, just reset the board. Make sure you utilize those options. They're there to help you as a tool to winnow out the bad stuff and try to get more useful things in your deck. Doesn't mean you're always going to be able to, but if you can, you should definitely do it. So anyhow, I hope this segment was helpful. We haven't really done a segment like this in a long time, because we haven't had I think it was last time we did one of these was for the Witchwood and beating Swamp Queen Hagatha.
The adventure, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think these ones are a little bit easier to kind of talk about tech choices and stuff like that, the way that this one's set out.
Yeah. Yeah, you're basically building a deck that you're basically going for broken. If your deck isn't broken, you don't win.
Yeah.
It has to be really almost on the absurd line. So if you find yourself by the 5th boss, even if you're winning and your deck is you just feel like you're eking out games, you're probably not going to beat the 7th and the 8th boss, just realistically speaking. So don't get salty and think the game's hard or you suck or anything like that. Just think, okay, so my deck isn't just broken enough, like especially the 12th wing, or the 12 boss 5th wing, because Vargoth just like punishes you with spells over and over and over and over again. Kalik he'll get his plus his spell damage up to 7, 8, 9, 10, and if you're not putting substantially good boards that are threatening to him, he'll just go burn your face down. But if you're presenting like legit threats, 8/8s and 4/12s and Antonituses and stuff like that, he will target those first and not go to face and use his resources that way. And then Khadgar is just hard. but you have to be able to like get stuff down and just go for it.
Well, think about it this way.
So anyways,
you are the bad guy in this scenario. So it's actually good if Dalaran wins.
No, I want my card back, dang it. So, anyways, if you have any questions or anything I forgot or left out, please feel free to message me, and then we can have a chat. We have a little channel in our Discord that's kind of, I'll leave it up for a little while, talking about Dalaran Heist. So let's start wrapping up the show. Eve, we have a review. We have a 5-star review. Muffled. I'll just read it because I can't hear you. Says, no, you're back on. There you go. You're muted. Why don't you just read it? Because people like hearing your voice probably better than mine. And I've talked a lot. So go ahead.
Ostrich Messiah.
There you go.
From Canada.
Look where they're from.
Oh, dear. Ostrich Messiah from Canada says, as a new Hearthstone player, this podcast is wonderful. Eve and Grant approach the game in a relaxed, non-rushed fashion that's very friendly towards new and old players alike. They'll always take the time to walk through the cards and combos, give their opinions, and generally help me not get so tilted I lose my mind. Great show. Tenutaten?
Tenutaten? What does that mean?
That's a good question. Like, my guess would be Japanese, but I want to Google it. Tenutaten.
If anybody knows what that means, let us know. Thank you. If you want to support the show...
Rob actually sent me one.
Right. Oh, did he?
Oh,
Is
that's
it the same one?
Never mind. It's the exact same one.
Yeah, Rob sends it to both of us. Thanks, Rob. He has the app that filters out some of the world stuff. Like, so if people from different countries send reviews, we don't get them very easily all the time. But he's got a service that like grabs that for us, in case you're wondering, which you probably weren't. If you want to support the show, iTunes reviews are always excellent ways to get us up in the search queues for that kind of thing.
We like reading them on the show. They make us happy.
We really do. Hey, I've spent a lot of time this week thinking about Dalaran Heist, and when somebody tells me that they value what we do, it makes it feel worth it. Sometimes it feels like an avocation, a hobby that can sometimes be an avocation. But anyways, if you want to support the show monetarily, you can go over to patreon.com/Velen's Chosen podcast. Your dollars get put to work. They help us put out good content, because sometimes there's those lean months where we use that money to get the content so we can play the content to help you understand the content and hopefully have a more enjoyable experience. You guessed it, with the content.
That's our obligatory content for the show.
There you go. How many more times can we say content in the next 2 minutes? Jamie S., thank you so much for your continued support. We love you and are very grateful for all that you've done for us over the years. And for all you other listeners who support in smaller ways. Sometimes it's moral support. Sometimes it's that cup of coffee a month. We appreciate you. If you want to find anything and all things Velen Chosen, head on over to velenschosen.com. And it'll have links to anything you want to do. Jump in the Discord. We'll say hi to you. Feel free to talk about anything and everything related to the game, and even more if you're interested. Community is very helpful and always willing to lend a hand. Eve, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Loremaster Eve. I'm Finnavar on PlayStation Network. FHINNOVARR. Now I get to spell that. I got it out again. I'm still working on lore. I've been kind of thrown all around this week with different things happening family-wise. So thank you for your patience, those of you who follow Knights of Lore and those of you who have been looking for more lore from this podcast as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, life has a funny way of getting in the way of your hobbies and all these little side projects.
We make it a priority as much as we can. And Grant certainly gave a lot of time and energy to this week's podcast.
Many hours, and most of that was spent playing and learning Dalaran Heist inside and out. I can say that it is interesting. I lost a lot. Let's put it this way. I lost a lot. I probably played each wing at least 7 or 8 times, just getting through it, figuring out. And once I started figuring out like what worked, then I felt like I was getting more consistently to the last bosses and beating them.
Many minions died to bring us this information.
Well played. So, but it was fun. I was actually really satisfied when I beat, especially when I beat the fifth wing. I was like, yeah, and I remember it's like, man, last time I cheered in Hearthstone like that was the last time I made Legends. So I was like, all right,
Nice.
so it has a similar feeling to it. It's definitely worth doing, I think. And there is some flexing right now if you have that card back. So, if you want to find me, you can find me at Twitter, mostly at WatchmanHS. Friend me in game at Watchman #1140. I just noticed that an iPhone, you can talk and text now, whereas before you couldn't hit the microphone and talk into it. I can actually. Today I just mindlessly did it. Somebody was messaging me in game, and I saw the microphone. I pushed it, and I could speak in it, put it in the text box in the Hearthstone thing.
I love talk to text.
I do talk to text all the time, even when I shouldn't be, but I do it all the time, even when I'm driving. So somebody will text me and I'll just say it. So you can do it in the Hearthstone client now. I don't know if you've always been able to.
I don't think so.
It could be that I have a newer iPhone than I used to. I don't know, but it's a thing that is now in existence. So I'm going to be utilizing that. So anyways.
That's cool.
So shout out to all of you people out there who are able to do the current Tavern Brawl in under 20 minutes, because that's just insane to me. I thought I was blazing fast doing it at 22 minutes and change, but there are people that are doing it under 20, and you guys are just gods among men and women.
They're seeing the green card that's lit up, and they're just pressing it and pressing enter.
They're hitting the matrix, man. That's what they're doing, seeing it. So, all right. Well, Eve, sign us off.
Not all who wander are lost. We'll see you in Dalaran.
Take care, everyone.
I foresaw this.
Did I miss it?